All right, let's look at a review of writing linear equations given a variety of information. So first off, we have a couple problems here that just give us the slope and the y-intercept and ask us to write it in slope-intercept form. So basically we just need to go, oh, I know what slope-intercept form is. It is y equals mx plus b. And I know that the slope that they gave me represents m, or m represents the slope they gave me, and that the b is the y-intercept, and so I just put these in. I leave y and x as y and x, so y equals 3/5 x, and then plus -1, or we could just say -1. The intention here is that our answer on basically all of these, actually, our answers are all things that we could graph if we wanted to. Now, we don't have to, but that's kind of like that's your end goal. You're not done until you have an equation that you could graph. So, I don't know if that's helpful or not. This next one, the slope is 5, so that's m. The y-intercept is 0, which is b. Well, that means that I would do y equals 5x, and I can put a plus 0, or I can just do y equals 5x, and I would consider both of those to be correct. This next section, we have a graph instead, and so that means that we have to find the slope and y-intercept ourselves. Otherwise, it's the same exact thing as what we were doing. And basically, as we go through this review and as we went through these lessons, we just got progressively less information given to us so that we had to do more of the work ourselves. So here they give us a graph. Well, we can figure out what the slope is by counting the rise over the run. So that's this way and this way. So I'd go up 1 and over 4. That's our slope. And then I can say, okay, where does it go through the y-axis? That's at the number 1 here. So if I put that into y equals mx plus b, I get 1/4 x plus 1, like a so. So then each of these is going to be similar. I do recommend that at some point you start pausing the video and then trying it yourself and then starting it back up again. Also, you can go through this and do just the odds first and then do the evens later to see, like, if you need a lot of help on the odds, then, you know, kind of look over those things and then work on the evens. So yeah, that's something you can do. Number 4, let's count the slope, or, you know, we could also just say, well, I know the y-intercept already, actually. Let's see, b is 3, and then the slope is, let's count down, that's 3, 4, 5, and over 2. Since it's down 5 and right 2, that's a negative slope, -5 halves. So y equals -5 halves x plus 3 is our answer there. Number 5. Now, when we see a vertical or a horizontal line, the best thing for us to be able to do is say, hey, that's a special kind of line. Now, what do I do with these special kinds of lines? If it's a vertical line, it is x equals whatever number it's going through on the x-axis. So, in this case, it's going through at -5. So that means this line is x equals -5. So one of the things that may feel confusing is, why is it x equals -5 when the x-axis is going horizontally, not vertically? And that's because all of the points on this line have an x value of -5 and then some other y value, like y could be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So you just got to kind of get into your head this idea that vertical lines are telling me that x is the same the whole time. And then that means that x equals -5. 6 is a normal kind of line. We need the slope and the y-intercept. Let's see, y-intercept is -2, and the slope is, looks like down 1, right 2, so that's -1 over 2. Also, what I should have said on 5 was, remember that if we start trying to put number 5 in slope-intercept form, we run into issues because it does not have a y-intercept. And it also has an undefined slope, because a skier on this line would have an undefined amount of fun because he'd just go forever and ever and ever and live happily ever after, skiing to his heart's content. So that's two things that tell us, hey, I can't put it into slope-intercept form, which means that I can't do y equals, I have to do x equals. Okay, anyway, back to 6. We have y equals our slope, -1/2, plus b, and so since it's plus a -2, I can just write -2. Seven, special line. It's a horizontal line. Now this one, though, we could just do slope-intercept form anyway. It's only x equals lines, only vertical lines that we have issues with. Because I could say, hey, this goes through -2, and my slope is that I don't go up or down, I just go to the right, so that'd be like 0/2, for instance, which is 0. And so if we write this in slope-intercept form, it's y equals 0x minus 2, but 0 times x, no matter what x is still going to be 0, so y equals -2. Now it would be easier if you just had in your head this idea that if I have a horizontal line, it's telling me that y is always whatever this number is, in this case -2, but that's at least two different ways, basically, that you can try to figure this out. Number 8, we are going to do up and down in this way. And so that's going to be 5 and 2 for our slope, up 5, right 2. And our y-intercept is down there at -5. So y equals 5/2 x minus 5 would be our answer. So that's the first page. Like I said, as we go through this, we're getting less information given to us. So on 9 through 12, it says write the slope-intercept form of the equation that has the given slope and the given point. And so we're not being given the y-intercept, we're given a different point that the equation goes through. Now, there are actually two different ways to write an equation of a line when you are given the slope and a point, and I have two different sections here that we can do that in. I have a section where it asks for slope-intercept form and a section where it asks for point-slope form. And I honestly, if you are fine with doing point-slope form for everything, part of me says, just go for it. Just do point-slope for everything, because it is actually what most people would consider the better way of writing it, at least in higher level math. But I don't know, I think in Algebra 1 we have some trouble with using point-slope all the time. So up to you, but I'll go ahead and do this section in slope-intercept form. And the next section, whether you like point-slope or not, I do want you to put it in point-slope form. So on 9, we have the point -5, -4. What we have to remember is that is giving us an x value and a y value. And the slope is giving us m. And so what we're going to do here is plug this into y equals mx plus b, where we actually put the y and the x in, and the m, and then all we have left that's not something we know is b, and we can solve for it. So that would be -4 equals 9/5 times x, which is -5, and then we don't know b, so we put plus b. Every time we do this, the first step is going to be to times the slope and the x value together. And if the slope is a fraction, that means that you'll likely have to put -5/1 and then multiply. You can either multiply and then simplify, or you can simplify first and then multiply. Either way, when we do 9/5 times -5/1, we should end up with -9. And that's essentially because those 5s can cancel out. But the negative does not cancel out, and neither does the 9. So here I'm going to add 9 to both sides and get 5 equals b. So my slope-intercept form is y equals the slope they gave us plus b. And what I will see students do on this is put y and x in for their answer as well, so that all of these are numbers. And that's not what our goal is. Our goal at the end of this is to have y equals a number x plus a number. where y and x are still those two variables, because we want an equation that represents a line. And if I put numbers in for everything, that's not happening. So just try to keep that in mind. If you were to do point slope, but then needed to put it into slope intercept form, we would do, I'll write point slope down here because we're going to use it in a second. Here's point slope. So we do y minus -4, which is a +4. We do 9/5, and we do x minus -5, so that's +5. If you distribute the 9/5 and then subtract 4 over, you will end up with y equals 9/5 x plus 5, because we have 9/5 x, and then we do 9/5 times 5, which gives us 9. That's 5 over 1, and 9 minus 4 is 5. So if you are really enjoying point slope and don't want to have to solve for b, you can put this in point slope and then change it to slope intercept form. Let's look at 10. X and y and m. Plug it in. So 4 equals 3 times 3 plus b. So that means 4 equals 9. So I subtract 9, -5 equals b. So y equals 3x minus 5. Let's look at 11. We have the point 1 comma -5 and a slope of -1, and we'll plug it all in and it'll be totally awesome. So let's see. I'm gonna do x, y, m. -5 equals -1 times 1 plus b. So -5 equals -1 plus b. So let's add 1, boop, 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 boop. So -4 equals b. So let's do y equals -1 x minus 4. Or even better, we don't need the 1 in front of the x. We could write -x minus 4. If you've not already paused the video and tried this on your own, this is the time to do it, because we just have this last one. If you can't do this problem on your own, or this type of problem on your own, then you need to do something about that. Because if you can't do it on your own now, what makes you think that you'll be able to do it on your own on the test, essentially? So x and y and m, 2 equals -2/3 times 3, which I'll make 3 over 1. Plus b, so the 3's cancel, so that we have 2 equals -2 over 1, which is -2, add 2, so b is 4, and then I write y equals -2/3 x plus 4. That's my answer. So like I said, I think point slope can be the trickier one of these two ways of writing things, even though once you're used to it, it is faster and easier. So I have the point slope form written up there at the top. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so we are given m, and we're given an x and a y. And while in the previous section, I labeled the point as x and y, this time we're going to label them as x1 and y1. And that's also probably part of where the confusion comes from, is why on the previous one was it x and y, and on this one it's x1, y1. And that's because that's what gets us the equation of the line, is by, in this case, using x1 and y1. If you put it in for x and y, you would actually have to do, I guess it would work, but you'd need to do some more solving to actually get it into a form that makes sense. I don't know. So let's see. We're going to do y minus y1. And so if you do that and say, okay, it's minus a negative, remember that that's a double negative, and so we'd say, oh, that's really positive. And you don't have to do it the first way. If you just are like, nope, I got this, I'm just going to change the sign to a plus. And then we'd put our slope and then put x minus -1, which also changes to plus. Essentially, when you look at your answer, these two signs should be the opposite of the signs that are in this point. Interestingly enough. like how this plus 1 looks. There we go. So that would be our answer. Let's see here. This is x1, y1, m. So y minus 3 equals negative 7/2 times x minus negative 2, which makes it be a plus 2. So that's our answer. 15 through negative 5, negative 4 with a slope of 6/5. So x1, y1. Again, as you go through this, hopefully it's getting easier, and at some point you really should pause the video, if nothing else by 16. Pause the video to see if you've got the hang of it. I have already written down something incorrectly. I do not want it to say equals. I want to say y minus negative 4, which is really y plus 4. And then my slope is 6/5, and then x minus negative 5, which is plus 5. These points had a lot of negatives. That's not always the case. Sometimes you'll have positives, or more positives than this. I like being positive. I don't know about you guys. All right, last one. Pause the video if you haven't already. If you can't do it on your own, you need to get some help from me or from somebody else so that you know how to do it for the test. So x1, y1, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, but get help. Y plus 5 equals, because it's y minus the negative 5, negative 1, and then x minus 3, and you technically don't need the 1 in front there, and I know that normally I don't write 1s in front if I don't need them, but I like it better in point slope whenever it actually has the negative 1 in front, personally, but maybe that's just me. Okay, here's the big section. There's a bunch of problems here. We're being asked to write the equation of the line through the 2 given points, and it does not matter to me which form you write it in. You can write it in slope-intercept, you can write it in point-slope. If you write it in point-slope, there's actually 2 different ways you can write your answer. So that makes the whole, me explaining how to do it a little complicated, because I don't really want to explain 3 different ways, but I feel like I should have the answer all 3 different ways. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. The first thing we need to be able to do is find the slope. Now, the slope formula is that m equals our y values subtracted over our x values subtracted. And so what that ends up doing is it doesn't matter which way you go, which one point you put as y1 and x1 and x2 and y2. It just matters that you're consistent. So if I do 10 minus 0 on top, then I need to do 4 minus negative 4 on bottom and not the other direction. Both arrows go the same way there. So 10 minus 0 is 10. 4 minus negative 4, well, that's a plus plus situation. And then I'm going to simplify this. 10 over 8 is 5/4. From here, depending on how you're going to do the problem, you can either write it in point slope and pick one of the 2 points to use to put in it, or you can put it in with one of the points and then solve for B. And when we're doing this, we need to understand all 3 of the answers I'm about to write are actually talking about the same line. It just may not be obvious, because when you're in point slope, you would have to actually get rid of the parentheses and solve for y to see what it is in slope-intercept form. So let's give this a try. We're going to say for point slope, y minus 0, I'm going to use the first point, equals 5/4 times x minus negative 4, but that's actually a plus 4. This is one of your possible answers. If I use the second point with point slope form, that's y minus 10 equals 5/4 and then x minus 4. That's one of the options. And remember, you don't have to have all 3 of these answers. You just have to have one. So then the final answer for slope-intercept form, I don't know why I said final answer. Our slope-intercept form, we'd have to find B, and that means that we end up with, let's see, a plus 5. Oh, I forgot this parentheses. Yeah, we end up with b is 5. If you're like, how'd you get b? Go back and look at the top of the previous page, the top 4 questions there. That's not actually how I did it. I simplified point slope form in my head, but if you don't want to do that, then go back and look at how we find b. There are a lot of these, and a couple of these, at least, maybe more than a couple, are going to end up being our special lines that are either x equals or y equals, so be on the lookout for that. In fact, that actually happens on 18, because I can tell that it's one of those types of lines whenever either both x values or both y values are the exact same number. They both have to be either positive or negative. They can't have one be positive, one be negative. And what's really great about this is that if you notice it, that both of these are 4, and they're the y value that we're being told, that means this line is simply y equals 4, which, you know, I think is pretty sweet. And that's how we do that. 19, if you look at, has something similar because they are both x's are -3. So we'd get x equals -3. Now, if we don't realize that, then on 18, if we find the slope, we're going to end up with a slope of 0, and then we should be able to plug in everything just fine. But on 19, we would end up with this situation where we have 3 divided by 0. And you can't divide by 0, because if you have 3 apples and you try to give them to 0 people, how many apples do you give those 0 people? And that doesn't make sense. So when you get that and you realize it's undefined for our slope, that's our last clue that, oh, this should be x equals a number. So then let's look at 20. This one's going to be a more normal one where we have to find the slope. So let's see. I'm going to subtract the y's. So that's 4 minus 2. And then -6 minus -3. So that's -6 plus 3. The easiest mistake to make on slope here is to not change the signs of the second thing. We are subtracting 2. We are subtracting -3, which makes it plus. 4 minus 2 is 2. -6 plus 3 is -3. So our slope is -2/3. That makes our point slope answers be, if I use the first point, y minus 2 equals -2/3 x, and then plus 3. That's one of our options. And then we can do y minus 4 equals -2/3, and then x plus 6. If we do it in slope-intercept form, that's going to give us -2. Hang on. I do believe that's going to give us a 0 for b. So this would just be y equals -2/3 x if it's in slope-intercept form. So there we go. That would be our answer. Last 4 of these, and then just one more thing, and we're done with this. So that's cool. So -4, 5, and -4, 0. First step is finding the slope, which is 0 minus 5. And then oh, wait a second. I can't believe I didn't notice that this one is an x equals, because they're both both x's are -4, so x equals -4. Hooray! That was going to be more work than that. And then it wasn't, so that's great. 22, we're going to do 3 minus 5. And 0 minus -2, which is 0 plus 2. -2 over 2 is -1. Then for point slope, if I do the first point, it's y minus 5 equals -1 times x plus 2. If I do the second point, it would be y minus 3 equals -1, and then x minus 0. And there are some simplification things I can do because of that minus 0 or because it's a negative 1. But if we're putting in point slope, I would rather just make it look like point slope personally. Now, because of this point being 0, 3, that's actually giving us the y-intercept. And so if you realize that, slope-intercept form is pretty easy here because you do y equals negative 1x plus 3. But that only works when it's 0 comma something. That 0 comma whatever that number is telling us our y-intercept. Let's look at 23. So our slope here would be 4 minus 0 over 2 minus 0, which is 4 over 2, which is 2. And then we would do, well, this is actually telling us our y-intercept. If you wanted to say this is y equals 2x plus 0, or in point slope, I mean, we could do this one like this if we wanted to. If we wanted to use 0, 0, or it could be y minus 4 equals 2 times x minus 2. Those are all the options right there. Last one of these. So we're going to do, let's see, negative 4 minus 6. This one almost looks like it's a vertical or horizontal line, but notice that like negative 4 and positive 4, those don't match. You can't say, oh, this is negative 4 and this is negative 4, so that means something. Well, it might, but it doesn't mean what you think it means. So we're going to do negative 4 minus negative 6. And then we're going to do 4 minus negative 4. I don't know why I didn't change those to pluses. Plus, 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 plus. So that's 2 over 8, which is 1/4. So for point slope, that's y plus 6 equals 1/4, and then x plus 4. For the other point slope would be y plus 4 equals 1/4, x minus 4. And for slope-intercept form, I'll go ahead and use the first point and solve for b. So that's negative 6 equals 1/4 times negative 4 over 1 plus b. So that's negative 6 equals negative 1 plus b. So we add 1 and get negative 5. So y equals 1/4 x minus 5 would be the answer there. All right, here we have parallel and perpendicular slopes that we're talking about. So the thing to remember is that parallel slopes have the same slope. So if they give me this line and ask me what the slope of a line that's parallel to it is, they're just basically asking me, can I find the slope of this line? And then do I know that my slope needs to be the same? So this is supposed to be 7/2. Perpendicular lines are different. I'll come back to 26. We take the slope still, but perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals. So we change the negative to a plus, and then we also flip the 3/4 into a 4/3. And so that means that our slope perpendicular to negative 3/4 is positive 4/3. So back on 26, parallel means it's the same slope. This is a slope of negative 1, so we need a slope of negative 1. 28, perpendicular, we start off with 7 over 1. We need to change it to negative 1/7 because it's opposite, and then we need to flip it. Now let's take that information and use it to write equations of lines that are either parallel or perpendicular to another line. So in this case, you can put point slope or slope-intercept form, doesn't matter to me. But what our takeaway, or what we need to take away, is the slope of this line is 3/2, and it's parallel, and so that means our slope needs to be 3/2. But our point needs to go through 2, 4, and the line they gave us, that point does not have to go through 2, 4, or probably doesn't go through 2, 4. Or, yeah, it absolutely doesn't, since these are parallel lines. So that's an x and a y they're giving me. So I could plug it into y equals mx plus b if I wanted to, so that I can figure out this in slope-intercept form. I'd subtract 3 over and get 1. Or I can put it in point-slope form, whichever one that I prefer. So that's it in slope-intercept form. In point-slope, oh, we're only given 1 point, so that's nice. There's only 1 point slope answer. Hooray. This would be it in point-slope. It's the same idea for 30. The slope they give me is -2, and it's parallel, so my slope needs to be -2. I can use that point to plug in and get slope-intercept form, or I can write it in point-slope, whichever one I prefer. This is it in point-slope. If I did slope-intercept form, that would be -1 for b, so y equals -2x minus 1. Perpendicular lines do not have the same slope, so we have to start off by changing the slope they gave us and making it the opposite sign and the reciprocal. So our slope is 2/3, and we use that point. So y minus 3 equals 2/3 and then x plus 3. That's one option. Or y equals 2/3 x. If I do slope-intercept form, I get plus 5. Again, if you're like, I don't know how you're getting that, go back to an earlier section or reach out for help, and I will be happy to help you. Perpendicular to this one makes our slope be -1/4. So y minus 0 equals -1/4, and then x minus 4. Or it's not telling us the y-intercept here because that would mean that x is 0, not y. So this would be -1/4 x, and this would be a plus a 1. Those are 2 answers. Thanks for watching.